When I woke up from surgery, the nurse told me my phone had been ringing for hours. It was my parents, but not to check on me. They were angry. Apparently, the twins had cried too much when I dropped them off that morning, so they changed their minds. They'd left my babies, 2-year-old Noah and Mila, with the neighbor's teenage daughter, while I was under anesthesia. When I called them, my father said coldly, "You can't keep expecting us to fix your problems, Tindra. You made your bed. Lie in it." I remember sitting there in that hospital bed, stitches aching, heart pounding, realizing something inside me had finally snapped. So I stopped asking. I stopped helping. And that's when they learned what it really means to lose a daughter. The hospital smell, sterile, cold, cruel, will forever remind me of that morning. I woke up groggy from anesthesia, my throat dry, my chest heavy from the surgery. The clock on the wall read 11:42 a.m. All I wanted was to know if Noah and Mila were okay. When I reached for my phone, there were 12 missed calls and 4 messages. None from my parents asking how I was doing. The first message was from my neighbor, Clara. "Hey Tindra, I just got home. Your kids are here with my daughter Lily. She said your parents dropped them off before 9. I hope everything's okay." My heart froze. Lily was 16. Sweet but still a kid herself. I called immediately, panic bubbling in my chest. Clara reassured me that the twins were fine, but I couldn't breathe properly until I heard their little voices through the phone. Then I called my parents. Mom answered with a sigh. "Oh, you're awake. We were worried." Worried. I could barely keep my voice steady. "You left my babies with a teenager while I was in surgery? You said it was a minor procedure," she snapped. "We didn't think it was serious enough to cancel our plans." "What plans?" Dad's voice cut in from the background. "Golf tournament. We told you 2 weeks ago." I almost laughed, not because it was funny but because the absurdity hurt too much. "So your grandkids were less important than golf?" Dad's tone turned sharp. "You're always dramatic. You expect us to drop everything every time you have one of your little crises. You chose this life, Tindra, single mom, constant chaos. Don't make it ours." Their words hit like a hammer. I'd been through divorce, debt, and a risky surgery, but nothing hurt like that moment. Hearing my own parents call my life a problem. When I hung up, something inside me cracked, but quietly, like glass under pressure. That evening, Clara brought Noah and Mila home. They ran into my arms, their faces still sticky from the cookies Clara's daughter had made. I held them close, inhaling their scent. Baby shampoo, sugar, innocence. They didn't deserve any of this. Later that night, as I tucked them into bed, Noah whispered, "Grandma said she's tired of you, Mommy. Did you make her mad?" Froze. "No, sweetheart," I said softly. "She's just confused." But I wasn't. Not anymore. I lay awake for hours, the house silent except for the soft hum of the heater. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Dad's voice. "You made your bed. Lie in it." So I did. But when I woke the next morning, I made a decision, one that would change everything. If I was such a burden, I'd stop being one. No more paying their bills. No more babysitting their dog every weekend. No more rescuing them from late fees or medical paperwork or anything else. They wanted distance. I'd give them exactly what they asked for. Cutting them off wasn't easy. It was terrifying. For the first time in years, I didn't hear my mother's voice every morning. No sarcastic, "How are the Chaos Twins?" No passive-aggressive advice about how I should find a man who can take care of me. Silence became my new soundtrack, and for the first time it was peaceful, focused on healing, physically and emotionally. The surgery scar still ached when I moved wrong, but I poured myself into rebuilding a life without their strings attached. I picked up extra freelance work, started taking the twins to the park every evening, and let myself laugh again. It was small, messy joy, but it was mine. One afternoon, while sorting bills, I noticed something strange. A notification from my parents' bank account. I'd been their authorized user for years, managing payments for them after Dad's mild stroke. I logged in out of habit, and froze. Their utility bills were piling up. Their credit cards maxed out. Mortgage behind by 2 months. I stared at the screen, realizing the truth. They'd always depended on me. Not emotionally, financially. For years I'd been paying their late fees, fixing their paperwork, even funding their vacations without realizing how deep it went. That's when I got the call. "Hello," I answered, balancing a bowl of mac and cheese as Noah tugged on my sleeve. "Tindra," my father's voice said, flat but uneasy. "We're having a little financial hiccup." I almost laughed. "You mean now that your problem daughter stopped fixing your bills?" He hesitated. "That's not fair. Your mother and I." Cut him off. "You abandoned my kids during surgery. You made your choice." There was silence. Then in a low voice he said, "You're being cruel." "Cruel?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "Cruel is leaving your daughter alone on an operating table while her toddlers sit with strangers." He sighed, defeated. "Fine. Have it your way." The call ended. I thought it would feel satisfying, but it didn't. I cried that night quietly while folding the twins' laundry. Because no matter how angry I was, they were still my parents. Then 2 weeks later I got another call. Not from them but from the bank. The representative said, "Ms. Monroe, your parents' joint account has been frozen due to suspicious activity. Several large withdrawals were made from overseas." My blood ran cold. Overseas. My parents barely leave the city. "Someone used your old login credentials," she added. "Your name was flagged." My mind spun. They'd cut me off, yet my name was still tangled in their financial mess. That's when I realized, they weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because they needed me again. The next morning Alan, my accountant friend, came by. "You said your name's still linked to their account?" he asked, typing furiously on his laptop. "Yes. But I stopped handling their money months ago." He frowned. "Well, someone's been using your digital signature to move thousands. Overseas. Mostly to luxury vendors." "What?" Alan turned the screen toward me. "Tindra, they used your identity. You could be liable if this gets flagged as tax fraud." My stomach dropped. They framed me. "Maybe not on purpose," he said carefully. "But right now, it looks like you're part of it." That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, every thought circling the same awful truth. The people who raised me, who should have protected me, might destroy me instead. I pulled out the old family photo. Christmas 2016. Mom laughing. Dad pretending to look grumpy while the twins sat on his lap. Was it all fake? The next day I drove to their house. I didn't call ahead. I just walked in. The place looked different. Darker, cluttered, suffocating. Mom sat at the kitchen table, cigarette in hand, surrounded by piles of unopened bills. Dad was staring blankly at the TV. They looked up, startled. "Tindra," Mom said, exhaling smoke. "We were just about to call you." I smiled, but not kindly. "Sure you were. Did you need help paying off another fake credit card?" Her face hardened. "Watch your tone." "No," I said sharply. "Watch yours. You've been using my name for months." The bank called. "I know about the offshore transfers." Dad's expression shifted. Guilt flickering behind defensiveness. "We had no choice. You cut us off. We were drowning. So you decided to drown me too." Mom slammed her hand on the table. "Don't be dramatic. We thought we could fix it before anyone noticed." I laughed bitterly. "You used my identity for fraud and called me dramatic?" For a moment no one spoke. Then Dad said quietly, "We didn't think you'd find out." I looked at them both, my voice low and trembling. "You didn't think I'd survive without you. But I did. And now you can survive without me." I turned toward the door. Mom shouted after me, "You'll regret this, Tindra." But as I stepped outside into the crisp air, I whispered to myself, "No, Mom. You will." I got in my car, pulled out my phone, and called the one person who could help me make this right. "Alan," I said, voice steady, "it's time to hand everything over to the authorities." When you decide to expose your parents for fraud, you don't do it out of hatred. You do it because there's nothing left to protect. Alan sent all the evidence to the bank's fraud division and local law enforcement that same afternoon. He told me gently, "Once this goes through, there's no turning back." He nodded. "Good. I don't want to turn back." 2 days later it hit the news. Local couple under investigation for financial fraud. Daughter unknowingly implicated. The headline spread across social media like wildfire. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends, neighbors, even my ex-husband texted me. "Is this true? Did your parents really use your name?" I didn't answer anyone. I didn't owe them explanations. By that evening, the news vans parked outside my apartment. The twins peeked through the curtains, confused by the flashing lights. "Mommy, are they here for us?" Noah asked. I forced a smile. "No, baby. They're just here to see the truth come out." The next morning my parents' lawyer called, not to apologize but to threaten. "Your parents are saying you gave them permission to use your accounts," he said. "They claim you forged documents to hide your debt." My chest tightened. "They're lying," he sighed. "Then you'd better be ready to prove it." That night, I sat with Alan at his office, surrounded by stacks of documents. "We have digital logs," he said. "Timestamps, IP addresses. Everything traces back to their devices. This will clear you." Still, I couldn't stop shaking. It wasn't the fear of going to court. It was the heartbreak of realizing my parents were fighting to destroy me, to protect their pride. 3 days later my phone rang again. This time it was my mother. "Happy now," she hissed. "You humiliated us. Everyone's talking about it." "You humiliated yourselves," I said quietly. "You've always been ungrateful. We did everything for you." I laughed bitterly. "You did everything to me. You left my babies alone during surgery, forged my name and stole from me. And you still think you're the victims." Her voice cracked. "You'll regret this, Tindra. Family doesn't turn on family." I took a deep breath. "Then maybe we stopped being family the day you turned on me." I hung up and blocked her number. By the end of the week, investigators confirmed my innocence. But the public damage was done. People whispered in grocery store aisles. Co-workers avoided eye contact, and social media labeled me the woman who exposed her own parents. I learned something about the world that week. People love redemption stories, but they hate the ones that start with truth. That night, as I put Noah and Mila to bed, Mila looked up at me and said, "Grandma says you're bad." My heart cracked. "Do you think I'm bad?" I asked softly. She shook her head and smiled sleepily. "You're the nicest, Mommy." I kissed her forehead. "Then that's all that matters." Outside, thunder rolled through the night. Fitting, I thought. Storms don't ask for permission. They just arrive, clear the air, and leave behind something cleaner. Started with a letter. A thick, cream-colored envelope left in my mailbox with no return address. Inside was a legal document. A petition for grandparent visitation rights. I almost dropped it. "They're suing me," I whispered. Alan read over my shoulder. "This isn't about visitation. They're trying to build a case that you're unfit, that you're emotionally unstable after the surgery." I felt the room spin. "They're using my recovery as a weapon." He nodded grimly. "And the media coverage gave them leverage. They'll argue you exposed them out of revenge, not justice." I wanted to scream. I'd fought so hard to protect my kids, and now they were trying to use the law to steal them from me. The next morning, a social worker came by, for a routine check. She was polite but distant, inspecting everything. The fridge, the bedrooms, even the twins' drawings on the wall. Noah clung to my leg. Mila asked, "Are we in trouble?" I smiled tightly. "No, sweetheart. We're just showing her how good we are at coloring." After she left, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried. Not out of weakness, out of sheer disbelief that my own parents wanted to take my babies. Alan called later that day. The judge reviewing their petition is known for siding with grandparents. "We need character witnesses fast." I reached out to everyone who'd seen what I'd been through. Clara, my neighbor who'd watched the twins, the doctor who'd performed my surgery, even my employer. They all agreed to testify. The hearing was brutal. My parents arrived dressed in somber gray, pretending to be heartbroken. Their lawyer painted me as a neglectful single mother with emotional instability. When it was my turn, I stood, holding the twins' photo in my hand. I had surgery because I was sick, I said, my voice trembling. I asked my parents for help, the same people who raised me to believe family means everything. They refused. They left my babies with a stranger while I was unconscious on an operating table. And now they're claiming I'm unfit because I wouldn't keep being their doormat. The courtroom was silent. The judge leaned forward. "Do you have evidence of neglect or instability?" she asked my parents' lawyer. He shuffled papers, flustered. "Only statements." The judge frowned. "Then this hearing is dismissed." Relief flooded me. My knees nearly gave out. My mother's glare followed me as I left the courtroom. She hissed under her breath. "You think you've won?" I stopped and turned to face her. "No," I said quietly. "I've just started living." That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply. But peace didn't last long, because the next morning my father's health collapsed. And somehow the blame came right back to me. It was Clara who told me first. "Tindra," she said gently, "your dad's been taken to the hospital. Heart attack." For a second the world went silent. No matter how angry I'd been, I still felt that familiar pull, the instinct to run, to help, to fix. I drove there in a daze. The waiting room smelled of bleach and anxiety. My mother sat slumped in a chair, her makeup smeared, her eyes swollen. When she saw me, her face hardened. "You came." I nodded. "Of course I did." She looked away. "You shouldn't be here." "He doesn't want to see you." Her words stung, but I stayed. I sat across the room, my heart heavy with memories. Him teaching me to ride a bike, sneaking candy into movie theaters, laughing at terrible jokes. The doctor eventually came out. "He's stable but weak." He asked to see his daughter. Mom stood immediately. "That's me." The doctor frowned. "No," he asked for Tindra. Her face twisted in disbelief. Inside the room, he looked pale and fragile, wires and monitors surrounding him. When he opened his eyes, they softened. "You came," he whispered. "Of course I did," I said, sitting beside him. His hand trembled as he reached for mine. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "About everything. I thought I was protecting your mother. But I hurt you instead." Tears filled my eyes. "Why didn't you stop her?" He looked ashamed. "Because I was afraid she'd leave me. She always needed someone to blame." I stayed there for hours, holding his hand. By the time I left, he was asleep, breathing steadily, peacefully. But outside, Mom was waiting. Her face was cold, unreadable. "Whatever you said to him," she hissed, "you made it worse. He doesn't need your guilt trips." I looked at her, the woman who once kissed my scraped knees and whispered bedtime stories. "No, Mum. He needed the truth." She stepped closer. "You think you're righteous. You've ruined this family." I shook my head. "You did that yourself." Then she said something I'll never forget. "If he dies, it's on your conscience." I walked away, my chest burning. But what she didn't realize was that I'd already carried their guilt my whole life, and I was finally putting it down. The morning of the will reading felt unreal. The air outside the attorney's office was crisp, but my palms were sweating. I'd spent 2 weeks watching my mother perform grief like a play. Black dresses, perfect tears, and sympathy posts online about forgiving her ungrateful daughter. When I walked into the oak-paneled conference room, Alan was already there beside the lawyer, Mr. Calder. My mother sat opposite, wearing her pearls like armor. She didn't look at me once. Mr. Calder adjusted his glasses. "Per Mr. Monroe's request, this meeting will be recorded. Shall we begin?" He opened a thick folder. My heart pounded as he started reading. "To my wife, Margaret Monroe, I leave a lifetime allowance and the family home, on condition that it may not be sold or mortgaged. Mom smiled faintly, triumphant. Then he continued. To my daughter Tindra Monroe, I leave the remaining estate, business holdings, and full rights to my trust accounts. Her smile vanished. What? Mr. Calder read on, steady and calm. This decision is made in acknowledgement of the truth, that my daughter acted with integrity when others did not. She has been my greatest disappointment and my greatest redemption. My breath caught. Mom slammed her hand on the table. He was confused. He wasn't in his right mind when he signed that. Mr. Calder looked unfazed. The document was notarized 2 days before his hospitalization. He was completely lucid. Alan slid a USB across the table. There's more. A video message from him. Your husband anticipated this. The screen lit up with my father's face, recorded from his hospital bed. His voice was soft but firm. Margaret, if you're watching this, I forgive you, but I cannot let you control what's left of our daughter's future. You built a house on manipulation. I'm leaving her the keys so she can build something honest. Mom turned pale. He didn't mean it. But he did. Every word landed like justice carved in stone. When the video ended, silence filled the room. I whispered, he knew. Mom finally looked at me. Anger, fear, and something like loss flickering behind her eyes. You took everything from me. No, I said quietly. You gave it away the moment you chose control over love. She stood shaking. You'll regret this, Tindra. Money doesn't buy family. I met her gaze. Then it's a good thing I'm not buying anymore. She left the room, heels clicking like a retreat. Mr. Calder closed the file. Your father wanted you to have one more thing. He handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a single sentence in my father's handwriting. Break the cycle, Tindra. Be the parent we couldn't be. I pressed the letter to my chest, tears spilling freely now. Outside, the wind felt lighter, the world quieter. For the first time, I wasn't anyone's burden or scapegoat. I was free. Weeks passed, and life began to settle into something that almost felt normal. The inheritance didn't change me, it changed what I could protect. I paid off every debt, set up a college fund for Noah and Mila, and donated half of my father's business profits to single-parent housing programs. Every dollar I used felt like reclaiming the years they tried to make me small. My mother moved out of the mansion. Rumor had it she sold her jewelry to pay legal fees. She called once, left a voicemail I couldn't bring myself to delete. Tindra. Sorry. I don't know who I am without control. I hope one day you can forgive me. I listened to it at midnight, sitting by the twins' beds as they slept. For a moment, I imagined the woman she used to be. The one who held me after nightmares and braided my hair before school. Then I whispered, I forgive you, but from afar. Forgiveness didn't mean reunion. Meant peace. Spring came. The twins turned 3, wild and giggling. We celebrated with a backyard picnic. Balloons, finger paint, burnt cupcakes. Perfection in its messiness. Clara stopped by, handing me a photo she'd printed from that day I came home from the hospital. Me, pale and exhausted, clutching my kids like lifelines. You've come a long way, she said. Smiled. We all have. Later, as the sun dipped low, Noah crawled into my lap. Mommy, when I'm big, will you still love me? I kissed his forehead. Even when you're old and gray, sweetheart. He giggled. Even if I make mistakes. I held him tighter. Especially then. That night, after they were asleep, I took my father's letter from my nightstand. Break the cycle, he'd written. Finally understood. Breaking the cycle didn't mean never hurting. It meant choosing differently when you did. It meant saying no when the world expected you to say yes. It meant showing my kids what real love looks like. Honest, imperfect, unconditional. I walked outside into the quiet street. The moon hung low, silver and soft. For the first time in years, I wasn't angry. I wasn't afraid. I was just me. Tindra Monroe. Mother. Survivor. Free woman. My parents called me a problem. Maybe I was the problem that ended the silence, the abuse, the guilt. Some problems don't break families. They save them. Like, comment, to subscribe. For more cinematic true-to-life stories of betrayal, healing, and redemption.